Chairman, Ms. Berry, let me just start with you. You said in response to a question from, I think it was Senator Graham, you praised the protests going on campuses. I just want to make sure I got this right, so you correct me now, as a national organic human rights movement. What did you mean by that?
The mass movement in support of Palestinian human rights is happening on college campuses across the country after students are learning more about the history of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and the specific targeting of Palestinian human rights. Yes.
Oh, okay. I just want to be clear about what you're praising and not praising.
Well, praising.
Let's have a look here. So,
yeah.
This long live the Intifada.
Yeah.
Is this an example of the what did you say, national organic human rights movement that you mean? Is this a human rights movement?
I'm not sure that using the term intifada, which literally just means to like shake off or get rid of, is effective, as most Americans don't actually associate it with a human rights issue. So I don't think that's effective. No, Senator?
Wait a minute. You don't think it's effective, but you would agree that this is calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. This is after the
No, Senator.
Oh, it's not? This isn't calling for the killing of Jews?
I was in 7th grade. The second Intifada started. Armed violence. And our Islamic teacher would teach us that it is glorified what all these martyrs or shaheeds are doing, the suicide bombers. If you're a Jew, you're not innocent. If you're Israeli, you're not innocent. Even if you're a baby, you should be dead.
I don't know that person and I don't know that sign. So
You don't know what this means?
I don't think.
You haven't seen this before? Did you see these protests Rabbi, do you know what this means?
Yes, it's a call for the destruction of the state of Israel and probably the killing of Jews everywhere.
רק כמה עשרות מתושבי נתיבות הגיעו היום להלווייתו. היתר נשמעו להוראות פיקוד העורף ונשארו בבתים. אנחנו מקווים מאוד שזה...
I do not agree with that, Senator.
You don't think that's hate speech right here?
Long live the Intifada can mean different. As I see the problem.
It can mean different things. Wait a minute. These are protests, violent protests on campuses that targeted Jewish students, attacked them personally, prevented them from going to camp, going to class.
Going this way. You guys have closed the entrance. We are UCLA students. I have my ID right here.
We're not engaging in that.
Then you can move. Will you move?
We're not engaging in that.
Okay, we're going. We're going. I'm going in. I have my hands up. I'm not hurting them. I'm not hurting them. That's what they do. That's what they do, everybody. You guys are promoting aggression. You guys are promoting hate. We're UCLA students. We deserve to be there.
Put them in fear of their safety after the October 7th attacks on the state of Israel that murdered more Jews than at any time since the Holocaust. And you're saying you think that this is an ambiguous message?
I'm saying that any student targeted on campus, a Jewish student.
Will you condemn this right here? Right here. Long live the Intifada. Will you condemn that?
Condemning Jewish students on a campus is being targeted, and the Office of Civil Rights should successfully be given funding.
Will you condemn this as hate speech?
I think that can be hate speech, but I don't think it's automatically hate speech. The problem is that there's nuance I'm trying to introduce to this conversation.
What's the nuance when these people are marching and calling for Jews to be killed?
Sir, because long intifada also means uprising for Palestinians. The way you get rid
so it's ambiguous, so it's hard to say. Well, my gosh. Okay, let's try another one. What about this?
Please, audience will please
Oh, yeah, that's fine. We know what you think. Right, exactly. I mean, I think you've made it clear, those who were cheering earlier when Senator Cruz was asking about the attempts to destroy and kill Jews. Let's just be clear about what's going on here, because here's what's happening at this hearing. We can't talk about anti-Semitism without also talking about something else. The message that's being sent today at this hearing today is anti-Semitism isn't enough. The attempts to kill Jews on campuses, that's not a conversation worthy of discussion. You've got to add something else to it. So if you want to kill Jews, oh, well, we can't talk about that unless we also talk about 15 other things. And now we have a witness sitting here who will not condemn the attempts on these campuses that are blatantly anti-Semitic tropes, Nazi tropes to try and kill Jews. What about this one? There's only one solution. Is that a national organic human rights movement?
No, sir. I trust that's in reference to Holocaust, and that's
I would think the final solution. Okay, what about this?
But
glory to our martyrs.
again, I don't understand the point of messaging like that. I don't know what that means.
Would you condemn this as anti-Semitic? This was projected here in Washington, D.C. on the campus in front of Jewish students following the October 7th massacre.
I think that that is not appropriate speech at a time.
It's hate speech in the context, don't you think?
Sure, but the point is I would prefer to focus on the issue of hate crime. That's the reason I'm saying that.
This is a hate crime. When you threaten to kill Jews and destroy the state of Israel, that's hate speech.
No,
that's a hate crime.
Threatening to kill anyone, including Jews, is
yeah. Let's not pretend that it's ambivalent or ambiguous or we're not sure. How about this one? Free Palestine from the river to the sea.
That's not hate speech, sir.
You don't think that this is a call for the destruction of the state of Israel?
Again, I can speak to what I think, which is amazing, because I'd love to talk about what I think, but I really think the focus of our hearing
You don't think that after the October 7th attacks, when this was projected in front of a group of Jewish students right here in the District of Columbia, you don't think that's an attempt to intimidate them and call for the destruction of the state of Israel?
Focusing on hate crime, I would say if that were displayed on a synagogue, then it's a hate crime. If it was displayed on a Hillel, then it's a hate crime. If it's displayed elsewhere, I trust its speech.
Well, and then we wonder why our students are confused. Rabbi, let me just ask you, are you confused about this message?
I'm not confused, and I'll add that even if it was ambiguous and could mean different things to different people, Senator, can you imagine if there was a phrase that also meant kill all the black people? Would we be okay with projecting it because it might also mean something else to someone else?
No, I mean, well said, well said. I'm almost done, Mr. Chairman, but let me just ask, since the witness talked about a national human rights movement, let me just ask about a couple others. University of North Carolina chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine claimed, it is our moral obligation to be in solidarity with the dispossessed, no matter the pathway to liberation they choose to take. This includes violence. Would you condemn that?
I'm sorry, was that for me?
Yes. It is our moral obligation to be in solidarity with the dispossessed, no matter the pathway to liberation they choose to take. This includes violence. You condemn that?
I certainly condemn violence.
Good. You condemn that statement?
I condemn violence. I have no interest in engaging in this back and forth about individual statements of students.
You know what? I do have an interest in it, and here's why. What I just read to you, the United States Senate unanimously condemned this rhetoric. And unless we take a stand now on this rhetoric, on this specific rhetoric out of the mouths of these students that you have called National Organic Human Rights Movement protesters, we are going to send the message that trying to kill Jews on campus, trying to prevent Jews from going to class on campus is just okay. It's just another viewpoint.
Senator,
it's not just another viewpoint. And frankly, what you're trying to do here today, I think, is wrong.
Your time has expired.
Deeply wrong, sir.
Here with reaction. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. Senator, let's talk about the guard that you're calling for, which I believe would be the right call. But I don't see Biden wanting to alienate his radical base. I think that's why he's not going to do it.
Well, sure. I mean, this is all about the fact that he has a pro-Hamas base, Sean. But listen, Eisenhower did the right thing back in '57 when he sent the 101st Airborne to Little Rock. Why not do it for Jewish Americans? I mean, it shouldn't be that in this country, in this day and age, that if you are a Jewish American, you fear for your life because all of these bougie jihadists at these universities whose brains are addled by TikTok are out there calling for your death, calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. I mean, what is going on these campuses? Send in the National Guard and wake these kids up. I mean, they ought to know they can't do this. They ought to know they don't have any right to occupy these campuses. They don't have any right to threaten their fellow students. They ought to snap them out of it, and the National Guard would help do it.
But aren't they supposed to be the best and brightest? Isn't it supposed to be hard to get into an Ivy League institution? Could they really be that ignorant? Do they not realize that in countries that take on Sharia law, radicalized countries like Iran, for example, if you're gay or lesbian, they'll murder you. If you're a woman and you're not fully covered, they'll beat the hell out of you, among the many other restrictions and civil rights violations. Whatever happened to the woke left in this country? Whatever happened to the belief in women's rights and gay rights and all the things they said they believe in? Are they just willing to bifurcate their brains and ignore that which they said that they were so passionate about?
Totally, 100%. That's 100% what they're willing to do, Sean. And you can just see, I mean, listen, these are the people who are standing around wearing N95 masks outdoors, doing interpretive dance, and calling for jihad. I mean, these are insane people. As I said, I mean, they're spending way too much time on TikTok and social media. Their brains are rotted, and their brains have been rotted by the university system, Sean. These universities are cash machines. They are sitting on giant endowments. They're not really educational facilities. They're giant private equity funds who have taken your money, taxpayer money, and now are using it to pump out this pro-Hamas propaganda. It's a disgrace to this country. These students are a disgrace. And all of this needs to end.
Well, you know, we know what this is about. Joe got freaked out. Over 100,000 Democratic primary voters in Michigan voted for undecided or uncommitted, rather. That's over 100,000. That was 18.9% of Democratic presidential primary voters. 50,000 in Wisconsin, about 40,000 yesterday in Pennsylvania. So we know what he's freaked out about. Let me get your reaction. I mean, Joe Biden just signed a law that says that TikTok has to be sold in 9 months or it's going to be banned in the U.S., but his campaign announced that they're going to continue to use it. Can you explain that logic to me?
Yeah, sure. It's because his campaign is run by a bunch of pro-Hamas TikTokers. I mean, that's why. This is all about pandering to his base, and they have decided that his base are a bunch of pro-Hamas radicals. I mean, let's be honest about it. Joe Biden himself, I mean, Sean, he doesn't know how to use an iPhone. He probably doesn't know how to use a flip phone. I mean, he's not doing this. This is all about the people who are running his campaign for him, and they will do anything to pander. And I tell you what, the amount of pro-Hamas propaganda on TikTok, I mean, it is a propaganda factory, pushing out this propaganda from China, trying to divide the country, trying to destroy Jewish Americans. And the Biden administration, they're happy to go along with it because they want these people's votes.
Yeah, agreed. Anyway, we really appreciate your time, Senator Josh Hawley. And I hope it's not happening in your state of Missouri.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of the witnesses for being here. Ms. Pacheco, if I could just start with you. Your organization, the Dream.us, you provide support for undocumented young people for college and career success. Is that broadly right? Am I getting it right?
That's correct.
And among the things you do is you provide scholarships to these undocumented students. Have I got that correct?
That's right.
And so college scholarships, just to be clear.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Can you tell me, maybe you know the answer to this, maybe you don't, any of the students, do you know if any of the students to whom your organization has provided a college scholarship are currently part of the encampments on any of these college campuses, like the picture you see behind me? I'm sure we've all seen these videos.
No, Senator.
Nobody to whom you provide scholarships are part of the encampments?
I do not know.
Oh, you don't know. What about, do you know if any of the students to whom you provided scholarships have physically threatened Jewish students on campus?
I do not know.
Here's why I'm asking. NBC News just reported, and I'm just going to quote now from the article, quote, this is Columbia University, a Columbia undergraduate who provided only her initials because she is an undocumented immigrant and fears deportation, said last week she spent hours a day in the encampment This would be the illegal encampment that's in violation of the law as well as campus policy. Spent hours a day in the encampment, I'm quoting still now, before university officials threatened to suspend those students. The article goes on, she joined, this student, joined a supplies platoon that's a subgroup formed by pro-Palestinian campus organizers, end quote. Let me just review some of the things that these students, these in the encampments that is, are saying. And of course, we often don't know who these students are. They're concealing their identities. This is, I'm going to read to you now, and I just warn folks, this is not pleasant stuff, but these are the facts, and we have to tell the truth. This is just from last night at George Washington University. That's here in this town. They projected, the students in the encampment there projected onto various buildings images of the United States flag being burned with the graphics, "Gaza lights the spark that will set the empire ablaze." They projected the following: "Long live the student intifada. Down with the settler state." That would be the state of Israel, I suppose. "Glory to the martyrs of Palestine." It's a jihadist slogan. "Stained with the blood of 44,000 Palestinians." That's last night at GW. Also at GW, they're now calling for beheading, the student encampment, beheading of individuals who support the state of Israel, including holding a people's tribunal where they're putting on trial, quote unquote, various members of their own board of trustees and calling for a guillotine. Here's Columbia University students on April the 20th, 2024. This is all public record. I'm reading this now. This is on, I guess it's X. Columbia University students yelling at Jewish students, and I quote, "Never forget October 7th. It will not happen, it will happen, not one more time, not 5 more times, not 10, not 100, not 1,000, but 10,000 times. The 7th of October is going to be every day for you." The 7th of October, this is to Jewish students, is going to be every day for you, end quote. I guess my question is, Ms. Pacheco, and for anybody else on the panel too, shouldn't we be deporting these students? If we have undocumented students who are here unlawfully in the country who are violating the law, let's just be clear here now, this is a violation of the law, and if they're also deliberately inciting persecution of a person on account of their race, which surely calling for the murder of Jews does that, shouldn't we be deporting them? Does anybody think we shouldn't be? Shouldn't we be deporting these students who are here unlawfully? Ms. Pacheco?
Senator, we expect a lot from our scholars, and the scholars and the students that I know love this country, respect this country, and want to and enrich not only the campuses, but also this country.
That's fantastic, and I hope and bet that none of the people that you sponsor are part of this. And I certainly hope that's the case. But I just wondered, is there anybody on the panel who thinks that we should not deport students who are here unlawfully, who are engaging in this activity, who are calling for the death of Jewish students, who are violating the laws of the United States? I mean, shouldn't we be deporting these people? Does anybody want to defend it and say, no, we shouldn't? They should absolutely be here. I think it's indefensible. The record reflects there's total silence from the panel. You know, I also think we ought to cancel the student visas, and I've called for this. For those who are here from other countries with a visa, I think if they're part of this, we ought to be canceling their visas. We ought to send a clear message. Actually, Ms. Pacheco, I think it was you in your opening statement put it really beautifully about how part of what we're talking here today represents the character of the country. I think that's very appropriate. And we need to send a message about this activity, not just about the trespassing and the destruction of buildings. That's bad, that's unlawful. But the threats of violence, and in some cases the outright acts of violence against Jewish students, we should send a moral message that if you do that and you are here unlawfully, you should be deported. If you are here on a student visa, you ought to have your visa canceled. This is the United States of America, and we are not going to stand for it. And I would just hope we could speak with one moral voice on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman. Mr. Shapiro, you've worked on Iran-related issues throughout this administration. You were on the team headed by Rob Malley, and you're now at the Defense Department. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has allowed the Iranian regime to build up a ghost fleet of tankers, which are third country flagged tankers. That fleet grew from about 70 vessels at the beginning of the administration to almost 400 tankers today. The Iranian regime used that ghost fleet to ship over 1 billion barrels of oil and to make unaccountable tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. When Joe Biden came into power, Iran was selling roughly 300,000 barrels of oil a day. Today, due to the Biden administration's appeasement of Iran, Iran is selling roughly 2 million barrels of oil a day. Those billions of dollars went directly to fund terrorism. They went to the Houthis, they went to Hamas, they went to Hezbollah. They pay for the Houthis' terrorism and for their weapons. They paid for the October 7th atrocities in Israel. The Biden administration refused to meaningfully enforce our sanctions, and we're seeing the consequences with war in the Middle East. In your judgment, how has the Biden administration's appeasement of Iran and refusal to enforce sanctions against Iran, how has that worked out for the safety and security of Israel and the safety and security of America?
Thank you, Senator. A number of the questions you raise about sanctions enforcement are the province of the Treasury Department, and I simply, on behalf of the Defense Department, will have to defer to my colleagues there. I will tell you that the subject of the hearing focuses on how we are responding to this particular threat of an Iranian-sponsored and backed organization, the Houthi. Before you arrived, we also spoke a bit about the U.S. response to other Iranian proxies.
Okay, I had a question. How's this working out for the safety and security of Israel and the safety and security of America? You're not answering that question.
The answer I can provide is that we are making very clear to Iran, through our posture in the region, through the assistance we provide to our partners, including Israel, in its need to defend itself, to our own responses when Iran and Iranian-backed organizations have targeted our personnel and tragically have killed 3 of our personnel, and in their sponsorship of the Houthi military strikes against free shipping in the Red Sea, that we will respond. And Iran
with all respect, that's baloney. And the Ayatollah has heard the message. Let me ask you, how many Ghost Fleet vessels did the Biden administration sanction before October 7th?
Again, sanctions matters belong to the Treasury Department, so I don't
know. Do you know the answer?
I don't know the answer and would have to defer to the Department of Treasury.
And is the Biden administration concerned about the billions of dollars they continue to flow to the Ayatollah today? Right now, today, that money is flowing to the Ayatollah because there are 400 ships in the Ghost Fleet that this administration won't sanction. The Ayatollah is selling much of that oil to communist China. The revenue is being used to fund Hamas, to fund Hezbollah, to fund the Houthis. And the Biden administration's response is, well, we made very clear there will be consequences. Baloney. Cut off the money. Why will the Biden administration not cut off the money from Iran?
Senator, I really have to stay in the lane of the Department of Defense. What we have made very clear.
Did you work with Rob Malley and his task force?
I worked for a few months as an advisor to then Special Envoy Malley, yes.
And you were ambassador to Israel. You have long experience in the region. I find it impossible that you have no views on the $100 billion plus that Joe Biden has gifted to the Ayatollah that has been used to murder Americans and murder Israelis. I'm asking you, isn't it time to cut off the money?
On behalf of the Defense Department, what I can say is that when we see Iran, which we do see on a daily and regular basis, supporting terrorism, providing weapons, providing intelligence, providing sponsorship and training to terrorist organizations, we make very clear to Iran that
but
not
you don't
only
make
will
clear. If they continue to have the money, you're not making it clear. If you say, here's $100 billion, but you know what? We're going to send you a stern letter. Well, that $100 billion is being used to fund weapons. Let me ask you, all right, and it's not just Iran, by the way, the Houthis. Listen, the Trump administration rightly designated the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization. Within a month of taking office, what did the Biden administration do? Delisted the Houthis. Now, finally, last month, the Biden administration was forced to relist the Houthis and to designate them as a specially designated global terrorist group. How did it work out, delisting the Houthis for 3 years? Did they behave just quietly, or did they continue to be the terrorists they've been the whole time, even while the administration was trying to appease them?
Some of this is Special Envoy Len King's province. What we have done, as the Houthis have demonstrated through their actions that they are behaving as a terrorist organization, is not only that designation, but also the defensive operation of Operation Prosperity Guardian.
So prior to January of this year, they weren't behaving as terrorists?
They were not shooting at ships in the Red Sea until
Were they terrorists
November of last year.
Were the Houthis terrorists last year?
They were designated as a designation that took.
I'm asking you: is it DOD's view? Were the Houthis terrorists in 2023? Yes or no?
They were a designated terrorist organization as of a few days ago, when it took office on February.
And your delisting them was indefensible, and it's proven catastrophic. Ms. Gavito, you served for 2 years as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Iran, Iraq, and Public Diplomacy. Then you became the acting principal deputy assistant secretary for Near Eastern Affairs. What was your role in issuing the waivers giving Iran access to that pot of money?
Thank you very much, Senator. With regard to the $6 billion in question,
the 10 billion, not the
sorry.
not the $6 billion in ransom. That's another problematic decision.
Apologies. With regard to the electricity waivers, I, as Deputy Assistant Secretary, did not have a direct role in that particular decision. That being said, certainly was part of those discussions. As Ambassador Jacobson has noted, the intent behind those waivers was to incentivize the Iraqi government.
I'm not asking about the intent. Did you support those waivers?
I was not in a decision-making capacity.
Did you agree with the decision?
I would have to review, Senator. Yes, I believe that incentivizing Iraq to divest itself of Iranian oil is positive.
Okay, Ambassador Jacobson, these waivers will have to be renewed this summer or they expire. If confirmed, would you support reissuing those waivers?
So I'd note that those waivers have spanned at least 2 administrations and been renewed 21 times since 2018, if I'm not mistaken. I take heart from the commitment of the government of Iraq to achieve energy independence by 2030.
That's not an answer to the question. Would you support reissuing those waivers?
Well, I don't think it would be up to me, and I would be more than interested in serving as part of the conversation.
There is a consistent pattern in this administration of giving money to theocratic lunatics who want to murder us. $100 billion to the Ayatollah Khamenei is the single most catastrophic foreign policy decision of this administration. And today, this administration continues to refuse to enforce the oil sanctions, enriching the Ayatollah, funding Hamas, funding Hezbollah, funding those who are murdering Israelis and trying to murder Americans. How does it make sense to give billions and billions of dollars to theocratic lunatics who want to kill us?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I personally am very clear-eyed about the Iranian threat. I think I shared with you, and I'll share with others, that I have been myself on the receiving end of Iranian death threat information, including during my time in Ashgabat when President Niyazov used to remind me that the Iranians had a missile pointed at my bedroom. With regards to the funds that are kept in restricted accounts that are overseen by the Treasury Department, that are the subject of an extensive system of safeguards, these funds will never reach the government of Iran. These funds have to stay overseas, and they have to be used for humanitarian purposes. You could ask, doesn't that mean that it frees up money for their massive terrorism campaigns, which of course are heinous? And I would argue that Iran, unfortunately, is always going to focus on destabilizing activity over supporting the humanitarian needs of its own people. With regards to the sanctions, the administration hasn't lifted any sanctions, and as far as I know, it's implemented another 700 sanctions.
But
on
it refuses to enforce it. My time's expired, but the results are indisputable. And Iran has gone from selling 300,000 barrels a day of oil to selling 2 million barrels of oil a day. That is funding this war of terror against us.